Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Now, before you say anything, something is obviously different. That's right, I got a haircut, thank you for noticing. And I know you'd be more than happy to hear more about my hair, but you probably came over here because of the thumbnail. That's right, party people, it's the return of the iceberg. In the last video of this series, we finished up the first tier of the Spider-Man iceberg, but just like the Photoshop file of a new digital artist, there are far more layers to dig through. So let's stop talking and let's start talking about Spider-Man. And in this video, we'll be talking about the film topics. That's right, I'm finally organizing these videos properly. But before we do that, it's time for the shoutout of the day. Today's shoutout goes out to Maz Koss on TikTok and Instagram. Maz Koss on TikTok and Instagram is a close friend of mine. And with that being said, I must say that every friend of mine is my best friend, and I will not be making any public declaration of single best or greatest friend for the sake of my well-being and safety. Their catalog of work on Maz Koss on TikTok and Instagram primarily consists of cosplay content. Maz Koss on TikTok and Instagram posts videos as their own original D&D characters, as well as certain characters from the Adventure Zone podcast, a D&D podcast that I have yet to catch up on, but I will eventually. And Maz Koss on TikTok and Instagram aspires to produce more content in the future, and what better motivation than an influx of followers? A whole whopping 10 more. Go follow Maz Koss on TikTok and Instagram, throw some positivity their way, and tell your friends. And while you're telling your friends about new creators, I have another great recommendation. Thank you so much, Maz Koss on TikTok and Instagram, for putting up with my antics, and thank you all for doing the same. Now, let's talk about movies. In Iron Man 2, we see a big Robo-Man mistake a young boy in an Iron Man mask for the real genius billionaire traumatized mechanic. However, instead of running away in fear, the young lad stands his ground against the Iron Giant's less friendly cousin. But before the robot can give this movie an R rating, the real Iron Man is Before the robot can give this movie an R rating, the masked boy is saved by the real Iron Man swooping in, voiding the drone's warranty, and telling the boy, "Nice work, kid," before flying off. And when the movie came out, nobody really cared. It was a fun throwaway bit, but it didn't seem to be important to the bigger picture. Enter Captain America: Civil War. This film not only introduced Spider-Man into the MCU, but it also gave people a real reason to rewatch Iron Man 2. You see, people started to ask questions like, hey, remember that one nameless, faceless kid from that one movie? What if he was like actually Spider-Man? That'd be crazy, right? Let's show our work. In Spider-Man Homecoming, Peter confirms that he's 15 in the year that the movie takes place. According to the MCU fandom wiki, Homecoming takes place in the year 2016, while Iron Man 2 takes place in 2010. Meaning that during the events of Iron Man 2, Peter had to be around 9 or 10 years old, which just so happens to be the age Max Favreau was when he played the Expo Kid in Iron Man 2. By the way, Max Favreau is also the son of Jon Favreau. Yes, that Jon Favreau. But even with this ironclad evidence, as well as the evidence of there is not one universe where Peter Parker would not be at the Stark Expo any chance he had, no matter his age. The theory was never officially addressed by anyone at Marvel. At least that was the case until Tom Holland confirmed it, like the entire theory. In 2017, the Huffington Post asked the Spider-Man actor if the theory was true, to which he said, "Hell yes," except without the hell and the yes. It wasn't a direct quote, but he did confirm it. And this isn't Tommy Boy just talking big. Holland had a conversation with Kevin Feige about this theory 20 minutes before he talked to the Huffington Post. Furthermore, John Watts, the director of everything Spider-Man MCU, would later corroborate this, remarking how he and Kevin Feige were discussing the math behind this theory while the two of them were rewatching the MCU films. I'm using a studio from my my college's library, and it's soundproofed, but I don't know how soundproofed. So I hope I'm not being a bother. So yeah, we're only short, Peter Parker saying on camera, in character, something to the effect of, "Hey, remember that time where I was like 9 years old and almost died at the Stark Expo?" Short of that, we have everything we need to confidently come to the conclusion that Peter Parker's first appearance in the MCU was actually in Iron Man 2 rather than his supposed actual debut in Civil War. During the development of Avengers Age of Ultron, Joss Whedon had plans for including two additional superheroes in the film's roster, those superheroes being Captain Marvel and, of course, Spider Man. Were these plans good? Of course not. This is Joss Whedon we're talking about. His plan for including these characters were to literally shoehorn them, evil stepmother style, into the final minute of the film. Minute singular, and I mean that. It was at the very end. In Whedon's vision, they would show up for like the 20-second sequence at the end of the movie. That's where they were going to be. In between. Who was there? I remember things in between Vision and the Falcon and Scarlet Witch, there and nowhere else in the film. Because, yeah, why bother like doing work or like putting an effort trying to like incorporate these characters in a meaningful way when you could just make the cash grab as blatant as you possibly can? Fortunately, Joss did not get his way for multiple reasons. For Captain Marvel, Kevin Feige, Kevin Feige, he's a pretty big deal. I don't know if you know. He just flat out told him no. Specifically for Captain Marvel, Kevin believed that it would be doing the character a disservice having their debut appearance in the MCU be so lackluster, which is true, and it is just as true for Spider-Man, but it was a little more complicated for, our boy. You see, Captain Marvel's inclusion in the film was held back due to creative reasons. Spider-Man's inclusion was restricted due to legal reasons. Because remember, the only reason why Marvel was able to include Spider-Man in the MCU at all was because they went through a lengthy negotiation with Sony, the company that owns the live-action film rights to Spider-Man. And the two companies would not sign a final contract until February of 2015, which was about 3 months before Age of Ultron was scheduled to release in theaters. Meaning that Joss would have only 3 months to cast an actor, design the suit, get a final design for the suit, like have all that worked out, then have animations, like 3D rendered animations, ready to go for the movie, for Age of Ultron, and he could not do any of that work beforehand, or else he would face the wrath of Sony in court. So no, Spider-Man did not make an appearance in Age of Ultron. Instead, he was properly introduced in Captain America: Civil War. However, remember, pop quiz, Peter Parker debuted in Iron Man 2. We're on the same page? During an interview with Sci-Fi for Spider-Man No Way Home, Tom Holland revealed that he was approached on the set of the film by Amy Pascal. Amy Pascal being a producer at Sony who is involved in both Into the Spider-Verse as well as the other two movies. That's the word. She approached Tom with the opportunity of making an appearance, possibly a live-action appearance, in Into the Spider-Verse. However, despite Tom's eagerness at this opportunity, neither Amy nor anybody else at Sony, or I guess, yeah, it's Sony Pictures. I got them. Anyway, basically there was no follow-up with Tom, and he did not make an appearance in Into the Spider-Verse. I almost got Sony confused with Columbia because Columbia was the company that did the Raimi trilogy, but Columbia is a subsidiary of Sony anyway. You don't care. Let's keep going. Because the story doesn't end there because Tom hasn't given up hope on making an appearance in any of these movies. In that interview with Sci-Fi, he had no shame in basically begging the Spider-Verse team to include him and his co-stars in the project. He said, "We are all eager, we are all willing, we are waiting at the phone, waiting for the call." And while I refuse to spoil this movie, Even though it's been out for months and it's been released digitally and all that stuff, still, no spoilers. I can say, objectively, there is still a chance that he could make an appearance in the third installment. And speaking of Into the Spider-Verse, Tobey Maguire was an early consideration for the role of Peter B. Parker, our favorite tired super dad. However, the Spider-Verse team had concerns over Peter B being seen more as an extension or like a continuation of Sam Raimi's version of the character, as opposed to their own unique interpretation. And having the voice of that previous iteration of that character that you're worried fans are gonna mistake your new iteration as, yeah, it was definitely a tough decision to make. And in my opinion, we didn't lose anything for it. Jake is a good fit for Peter B, and Toby is still everybody's favorite Spider-Man, so yeah, it's all good. I say that like I'm the authority of it. It's like, no, I declare that nothing is wrong, everything's okay, eat your cereal. And now, one of my favorite bits of Raimiverse trivia. You see, throughout the Spider-Man trilogy, sharp-eyed viewers may have noticed a recurring actor who, strangely enough, wasn't playing a recurring role. Bruce Campbell, best known for his performance as Ash Williams in the Evil Dead series, makes 3 separate appearances throughout Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy. In the first film, he's the wrestling announcer that literally gives Spider-Man his name. In the second, he is the theater usher that takes his job way too seriously. And in the third movie, he is the overtly French maitre d' that, Peter meets at the restaurant that he attempted to propose to Mary Jane in. I have thoughts. My brain works, I think. However, what if I told you that Bruce Campbell did, in fact, have a recurring role? You might ask yourself questions like, what? How can that be? Why should I care? Who are you? Well, I'd be more than happy to answer one of those questions. Remember in the last year, I talked about how there was going to be a 4th Spider-Man movie, but then Sam Raimi decided to not go through with the project because, we get what we deserve. Well, one of the things that Raimi had planned for this 4th installment was to introduce the character Mysterio. And Mysterio would have been played by Bruce Campbell. And it would be revealed that Bruce's portrayals as these seemingly separate characters were all actually connected. And all of these little stints of him playing the roles of, announcers, ushers, Frenchmen, these were all false identities he used to keep tabs on Peter and, by extension, Spider-Man, showing that Mysterio has been a part of Peter's life and has been a part of Spider-Man's entire life from the very beginning, being the man who gave Spider-Man his name. This could have been planned out from the very start. Like, Sam Raimi approached Bruce Campbell with the idea of like, hey, I got a long bit. I've got this crazy bit that you're going to be a part of. We're going to have a crazy time with it. It could also just be like he realizes like 3rd movie and it's like, okay, I got to justify why my boy's in here every time. Whether or not it was always intentional or it was afterthought, the fact that this plan existed in the first place is just amazing, and it's wonderful, and I love it. Sorry if that was loud, but... And speaking of The Amazing Spider-Man, one of the many less than stellar production decisions made for The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was the exclusion of one of the most emotional scenes of any Spider-Man movie. The scene takes place shortly after the final conflict with Harry Osborn, which results, spoiler alert, in the death of Gwen Stacy. We see a grieving Peter standing by her grave, deep in thought and despair. As he stands alone in the cemetery, we see somebody walk into frame and call out to Peter. Peter is shocked to see that the man is his father, Richard Parker, who was believed to be dead even before the events of the first Amazing Spider-Man. We learn that despite surviving the attempt on his life that we saw at the beginning of the film, Richard decided to remain dead to protect Peter from being targeted by Norman Osborn. But Norman's dead now, so Richard no longer needs to protect Peter from him. so he comes out of hiding to reconnect with his son. Peter is shocked, confused, enraged, and overall emotionally battered at this revelation, especially considering everything else he's going through at the moment. And Andrew Garfield's performance perfectly carries all of this, as does Campbell Scott's quiet but supportive performance as Peter's estranged father who wants nothing more than to comfort and protect his son through this exhausting ordeal. After Peter falls weeping into his father's arms, we see the two sitting at a nearby bench, where Richard gives Peter some guiding wisdom to help him through this difficult time.
I don't know how to go on without her.
You don't. You take her with you.
For reasons unknown, we're done with the dramatics. For reasons unknown, this scene was cut from the theatrical edit. However, this scene can still be viewed and enjoyed right here on YouTube, paired nicely with comments inquiring about just how stupid someone has to be to think that cutting this scene was a good idea. And speaking of bad ideas, our last and certainly least topic of the day is Spider-Man Lotus. If you want a comprehensive review of this film, or if you want a deeper look into what everybody's really talking about in regards to Lotus, I'd encourage you to watch videos from other YouTubers, specifically videos that dedicate the entire video to talking about it. This is not that kind of video, and honestly, I just kind of want to burn through this because there's a lot of information. A lot of it's not necessary, especially for you. What you do need to know is two names, Warden Wayne and Gavin Konop. Warden Wayne is the actor who plays Peter Parker, and Gavin Konop is the director of the whole shebang. And those two, as well as a couple of others involved in this fan project, are terrible. But before I talk about that, I do want to acknowledge that there are some decent people who are part of this project. As somebody who is studying film and media production, I am intimately aware of the fact that any big, large production effort has a large team of people behind it. And while it may be easy to just cast out the whole thing, because, there's a lot to cast out, I also think it's important to recognize when the good parts of something that are good, both quality and ethically, I still feel like the good should be acknowledged and that the good stuff shouldn't be overshadowed by bad. The suit looks good. I wouldn't say that it's better than any of the studio suits that we've gotten, but it definitely has care and attention to detail put into it. Unfortunately, I doubt that it's going to be able to outshine its dubious reputation as being the suit design for racist Spider-Man. And if you don't know what that means, you will in a minute. But if it wasn't for that negative connotation, I imagine the suit would have definitely been popular, or at least the design would have been, the talk of the San Francisco Comic-Con of that year. Also, shout out to the VFX crew. The VFX, especially the swinging scenes, are very well done, especially for a small fan-led team. However, believe it or not, fan projects tend to have a large amount of work without any structure, which could lead to workflows not being optimal, or in this case, not being tolerable, leading to the VFX team for Spider-Man Lotus to quit before production finished. Because believe it or not, it's actually really difficult and time-consuming to animate a CGI person swinging around. Simulating gravity is a difficult task. Surprise. But now that we've gotten all the good stuff out of the way, let's go dumpster diving. Gavin and Warden were the first two to fall into hot water when it came out, it was revealed, that they were both using harmful language online. Because, what else is new? Warden was the first one to get caught with his pants down when screenshots of private group messages... I'm so sorry. Screenshots of private group chats that he was a part of showed that he was using the N-word. And for frame of reference, this is Warden. So yeah, and he paired that word with a little sprinkle of racist and homophobic remarks as well. And Warden did the same. I'm not sure if it was in the same group chat or if it was in separate circumstances. But yeah, those messages got leaked of him using the N word, racist and homophobic slurs. But he did one up Warden because Gavin also included ableist slurs. Because yeah, you've buried yourself 6 feet deep already. You might as well set yourself on fire, right? And again, there's a lot more to this. Also, dishonorable mention to John Salandria, yeah, who was the actor for Harry Osborn, um, because um, shortly after the movie came out, other screenshots leaked that suggested that John had, at the very least in his past, groomed a student of his. Because, first of all, the fact that he is an acting teacher is baffling because everybody in this project, or at least all the actors, look like they're fresh out of high school, which I think for Warden is actually the case. Because, yeah, all these people are young people. There's not, this isn't like the story of a couple old men ruining everybody's fun. These were young guys um, who were like little edgelords in high school, and now it's coming back to bite them, and we should laugh at them. Laugh at those guys. Don't laugh at John. His stuff isn't just like cringe. It's creepy. So anyway, if all of that isn't enough to encourage you to not watch the movie, which it should be, from what I've seen, like what I've heard about it from other videos. Again, watch other people. There's a lot of people on YouTube to watch. It's also just a bad movie. And it's not even like Atomic Shark bad, where you can like sit around with friends and make fun of it and like make a day of it. It's Spider-Man trauma dumping to a terminally ill child and then storming off afterwards bad. That's an actual story beat. That's an actual thing that happens in this movie. I swear to Stan Lee, God rest his soul. But the best thing I can say about Spider-Man Lotus is that it does eventually end and we'll all be dead someday. And that does it. That covers everything, all the movie topics of this tier. In the next video, we'll be talking about Spider-Man on television, and then after that, we'll be finishing up the second tier of the iceberg by going through both the comic and video game topics in one go, because we're efficient here, before we burrow further into the third tier of the Spider-Man iceberg. And if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, like that hit button and the subscribe button as well. And while you're here, feel free to hit that notification bell too if you'd like to be notified on whenever I post next to this channel. I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope you have a wonderful week, wonderful life, and as always, stay happy, stay healthy, stay hydrated, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.